July 11, 2025, and outside the Belthangady Magistrate Court in Karnataka, a restless crowd had gathered. People held black placards, anger in their eyes mixed with a strange sense of anticipation. As they waited, a police vehicle slowly pulled up to the gate. The door opened, and a man stepped out, surrounded tightly by officers and flanked by two lawyers. The moment he appeared, the crowd pushed in, phones lifted to capture every second. The man was dressed entirely in black from head to toe. Only his eyes were visible behind the cloth wrapped around his face. In his hand, he carried a plain black duffel bag. When he was brought before the magistrate, he placed the bag on the table, unzipped it, and began pulling out bones, one after another, without flinching. When he finished laying them out, he looked up and said in a calm voice, "I can take you to more places where over 100 people have been buried. But I didn't do this by choice. I was forced." This moment marked the beginning of a case that would be remembered for decades. This was the case known as the Dharmasthala Mass Burial. Back in 1995, Dharmasthala was a peaceful temple town in Karnataka. An 18-year-old young man, referred to as Mr. V, had recently begun working at the Manjunatha temple. He was hired as a cleaning helper and assigned to keep the areas around the Neerthvati River tidy. For his work, he earned only 25 rupees a month, yet he was grateful to have a job at all. Every morning, he took pride in cleaning the riverbank, never imagining how deeply this job would scar him. A few weeks into his work, he came across something no teenager should ever have to see. A body floated near the river's edge. Since the Neerthvati was large and deep, and thousands of devotees bathed there every season, accidental drownings weren't unheard of. So Mr. V assumed it was another tragic incident. Someone who slipped, someone who couldn't swim, or someone who chose to end their life. He reported it and tried to move on. But between 1995 and 1998, bodies kept appearing. Sometimes near the water, sometimes a bit further uphill. At first he tried to believe they were all accidents. But the more he saw, the more that belief broke apart. Some bodies had visible injuries. Some appeared to be stripped of clothing, especially undergarments. The condition of these corpses felt wrong, unnatural, and Mr. V's suspicions slowly sharpened into fear. One day, when he was called to meet his supervisor, he thought it would be about routine cleaning. And technically it was. But the cleaning he was told to do that day was unlike anything he had ever been asked before. He was instructed to get rid of a body, completely, so that nothing remained. The moment he heard the request, he refused. Shocked and terrified, he told his supervisor they should be informing the police, not hiding evidence. But his supervisor's face hardened. He beat Mr. V mercilessly and warned him that if he ever refused again or tried to speak to authorities, he and his family would meet the same fate as the corpses he kept finding. With no power, no protection, and nowhere to turn, Mr. V broke. Trembling and helpless, he buried the body. He prayed it would be the first and last time. He hoped life would return to normal. But he had no idea this was only the beginning. After that year, not a single week passed without him being ordered to dispose of another corpse. Sometimes he buried them. Sometimes he burned them. And each time, he felt the weight of his actions crushing him. The guilt stayed with him through every night. The fear chased him through every day. And yet, he had no choice but to keep doing exactly what he was told. Sleep slowly disappeared from his life. No matter how exhausted he felt, his mind never shut down. But he couldn't speak up or step away, because the people forcing him to do all this were powerful, far beyond anything he could challenge. Even if he tried to report them, not only his life, but his entire family's safety would be at risk. So he stayed silent, trapped in a nightmare he had no control over. Over time, Mr. V began noticing disturbing patterns. Compared to men, the number of women, young girls, and even children he was asked to bury was shockingly high. Many of the female bodies showed bruises and injuries, and several had deep marks around their necks, clear signs of strangulation. Almost every young girl's body had marks suggesting something far worse had happened before death. Their clothes were missing, including their undergarments. Most of these bodies were buried near the Neerthvati River, where the wet soil sped up decomposition and erased evidence quickly. But some of the cases still haunted him years later. One was the body of a girl around 20 years old. Her face had been burned so badly it was hardly recognizable. Her entire body was wrapped in newspaper, and he had been given diesel to burn her remains completely. Another incident came in 2010, one that shattered him deeply. He was ordered to go near a fuel station in the town of Calgary. When he arrived, he found the lifeless body of a young girl lying in the dirt. She must have been between 12 and 15. She was still wearing her school uniform, but the lower half of her body was exposed, which told him exactly what had been done to her. Her school bag lay beside her, untouched. Mr. V was instructed to bury the child along with her bag in the nearby forest. Seeing adults, teenagers, and now a schoolgirl being treated like discarded objects broke something inside him, but he still had no choice. Every other day he was destroying another body, erasing another story, covering another crime. He could only imagine how powerless he must have looked, just a man carrying out horrors he never wanted to be part of. And it didn't stop there. He had witnessed countless poor men being beaten right in front of him, beaten so brutally that some died on the spot. Mr. V held himself together for nearly 2 decades, 19 long years of silence, fear, and guilt. But in 2014, something happened that pushed him past his limit. A young girl from his own extended family suddenly disappeared. The moment he heard the news, a cold fear gripped him. And when he learned the truth, that she had fallen victim to the same people he had been working under, his heart completely collapsed. That was the moment he broke. He couldn't stay there anymore, especially after losing someone connected to him. So in December 2014, he quietly took his family and left Dharmasthala forever. He changed his name, changed his appearance, and started living with a new identity in a different place. Every day he tried to forget the life he had left behind, hoping he could move forward. But the past didn't let him go. His nights were the worst. Regret tore him apart from the inside. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the people he had buried, the bodies he had burned, the crimes he had been forced to hide. They appeared in his dreams, standing beside him, staring silently. He spent 10 years hiding under a different name, but the guilt never stopped chasing him. His past refused to stay buried. He believed that none of those buried souls would ever find peace until their remains were properly laid to rest. And until that happened, he knew he would never find peace either. In 2025, he finally returned to Dharmasthala. But this time, he came back with a purpose. He went to one of the many places where he had once buried bodies and began digging. After digging for a while, he found a skull and a few bones. He took photos of everything, collected the remains, and went straight to a lawyer. Because the allegations were massive, and because they were directed at extremely powerful people connected to Dharmasthala, both Mr. V and his lawyers knew that filing a complaint could put his life in danger. That's why his lawyers submitted his statement in the form of a written letter to the police station, instead of having him appear in person. On July 3, 2025, Mr. V was finally ready to reveal everything: where the bodies had been buried, how many locations there were, and who the alleged perpetrators were. But he had one condition. He needed anonymity and protection for himself and his family. According to Mr. V, many of the offenders were allegedly connected to the administration of the Manjunatha temple in Dharmasthala. When locals heard about the complaint and began connecting the dots, suddenly the disappearances and unidentified bodies found in and around the region over the past 20 years began making sense. Among the many unnamed victims, allegedly close to 400 people, were 2 known names, Soujanya and Ananya Bhatt. Ananya Bhatt was a young medical student from Manipal who visited Dharmasthala with her friends in 2003. She suddenly disappeared. When her mother, Sujata Bhatt, traveled from Kolkata to search for her daughter, some locals told her they had seen Ananya walking away with a few temple employees. When Sujata went to the police, she was ignored. When she approached the temple authorities, she was allegedly assaulted, an incident that left her in a coma for 3 months. No one helped her then, and she had almost lost all hope. Now, with this case resurfacing, she believes her daughter might have been one of the victims, and she only wants her daughter's remains back so she can perform her final rites. The second well-known case was that of Soujanya, which sparked massive attention at the time. She disappeared in 2012 while returning home from college, and her body was found the next day near the Neerthvati River. Her hands had been tied with her own shawl, her clothing was missing, and her private areas were filled with sand. A man named Santosh Rao had been arrested in the case and sent to jail, but in 2023, he was released due to insufficient evidence. Soujanya's family always believed that the real culprits were not him. They believed others, allegedly connected to the temple administration, were responsible and that the police were protecting them. And honestly, their suspicion wasn't unreasonable. The investigation back then had been poorly handled. DNA samples weren't collected properly, and many believe evidence was planted. So now you can understand how powerful the people involved in this fight really are. For those who don't know, the Manjunatha Swami Temple in Dharmasthala is a unique place. The rituals are performed by Brahmin priests, but the administration of the entire temple is handled by a single influential family, specifically the Hegade family. Some of the alleged perpetrators were either part of this administration or closely connected to it. But Mr. V is determined. No matter how powerful these people are, he wants justice for every victim. That's why he gathered every proof he had. Mr. V had already written down every detail, the evidence, the names of the perpetrators, and sealed it all inside an envelope submitted to a Supreme Court advocate. He wanted to make sure that even if something happened to him in the future, none of the offenders would escape accountability. He wanted them to pay for their crimes. On July 11th, Mr. V appeared before the Belthangady magistrate. To protect his identity, he was dressed head to toe in black. In his hands, he carried a black bag filled with evidence. His statement was officially recorded, the documents were submitted, and for a moment, it seemed like the case would finally move forward. Mr. V insisted that instead of marking burial locations on paper, something that could allow criminals to destroy evidence in advance, he would personally take authorities to every burial site one by one. 2 days after giving his statement, he stood with his lawyers at one of the burial spots, waiting for officers to arrive. But allegedly, no one from the police ever showed up. After waiting for hours, he was forced to leave. And then came an even more shocking twist. His confidential statement, the one meant to be protected, was leaked on YouTube. The video stayed online for 11 full hours, yet police did absolutely nothing to investigate how such a major breach happened. Another suspicious layer in an already disturbing case. As of July 21st, 2025, no meaningful progress has been made. From Soujanya to Ananya Bhatt, from the alleged mass graves to the missing files, the dark history surrounding Dharmasthala continues to haunt everyone connected to it. Now the question is, will this latest revelation finally force accountability? Or will this case be buried again, just like the victims allegedly were? There's one more point to consider. Mr. V himself admitted that he wasn't innocent. He took part, he stayed silent, and he enabled these crimes for years. Public opinion about him is deeply divided. Some call him brave for coming forward. Others believe he only spoke up after saving himself. But what do you think? If this case ever reaches a complete conclusion, Mr. V will almost certainly go to jail and face severe punishment. But will the powerful people involved also be exposed? Or will the man who finally spoke up end up being the only one trapped? Or will we finally see everyone held accountable? No one knows yet, but one thing is clear. This case isn't ending anytime soon. These allegations are massive, and cases like this rarely come out in India. In fact, this might be one of the rarest, most shocking cases the country has ever seen. For now, the mass burial case remains on pause. Stay close to the people you love, everyone, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.